Ever wonder what you'd eat if you woke up 30,000 years ago, before the invention of the frying pan, the toaster, or even the humble bowl? No coffee, no cereal aisle, no little cardboard box promising 12 essential vitamins and a cartoon mascot begging you to eat him. Just you, a cold morning, an empty stomach, and a whole planet that has absolutely no intention of feeding you unless you go out and take it. There's no menu, there's no waiter, there's no snooze button between you and starvation. There is only the sunrise, the growl in your belly, and a very old question that every single human who has ever lived has had to answer. So let's find out. What did ancient humans actually eat for breakfast? First, a small confession. Our little stick figure here is about to travel back in time, and the very first thing he needs to understand is that breakfast, as a concept, is surprisingly modern. Our ancestors did not wake up, stretch, yawn, and think, ah yes, time for the most important meal of the day. Nobody told them it was the most important meal of the day because that idea came much, much later. And frankly, it was invented partly by people who wanted to sell you food. For most of human history, you ate when there was food, and you did not eat when there wasn't. The stomach did not follow a schedule. It followed opportunity. There were no set times, no 3 square meals rhythm, no fixed hour when the family gathered around a table that hadn't been invented yet. Hunger was the only clock, and it did not care whether the sun had just come up or was going down. So imagine our stickman as a hunter-gatherer, tens of thousands of years ago, deep in the Stone Age. He opens his eyes inside a shelter of branches or under a rocky overhang, with the cold still clinging to his skin and the ashes of last night's fire barely warm. He is hungry, yes, extremely hungry, but there is no pantry to raid. There is no fridge humming in the corner with last night's leftovers wrapped in foil. His first breakfast is whatever is left over from the day before, or whatever he can grab within arm's reach of where he slept. And here's the surprising part, the part that ruins every caveman movie you've ever seen. For gatherers, morning food was often plants, wild berries, roots, tubers, seeds, and nuts. Anything that couldn't run away, couldn't bite back, and couldn't outsmart a hungry human was a reliable, low-risk start to the day. Watch our stickman crouch by a bush in the gray light of dawn, popping handfuls of tart little berries into his mouth, dirt and all. Not because berries are a trendy superfood with a glossy label and a price to match, but because berries are simply there, and berries are easy. No chasing required, no spear needed, no risk of getting trampled, gored, or eaten in return. This is the quiet truth of ancient eating that the movies always forget. The dramatic mammoth hunt, all screaming and stone-tipped spears and heroic slow motion, was rare, exhausting, and genuinely dangerous. The daily reality was gathering. Patient, unglamorous, endlessly repeated gathering. Plants, roots, and seeds made up a huge share of the ancient diet, and they were very often the first thing eaten after sunrise, precisely because they were the safest thing standing between our stickman and another empty morning. But let's not rob our stickman of all his glory. Sometimes breakfast had a face. If the group had made a kill the day before, if the hunt had actually gone the way the cave paintings like to pretend it always did, the meat would still be around. And cold roasted meat for breakfast was absolutely on the menu. Picture our stickman gnawing on a leftover slab of deer, or a stiff piece of fire-smoked fish, while the morning fire smokes gently beside him, and his breath fogs in the cold air. Protein in the morning, thousands and thousands of years before anyone thought to print the word protein on a shiny package and charge you extra for it. He didn't count his macros. He just knew that meat kept the hunger away longer than berries did, and that a full morning was a good morning. And then there is one ancient breakfast food so good, so irresistible, that we still eat it today, straight from the very same source: honey. Cave paintings from thousands of years ago actually show human figures climbing precarious cliffs and swaying on woven ladders to reach wild beehives, surrounded by clouds of furious swarming bees, all for that one golden reward. Think about that level of commitment. Our stickman would have risked 100 stings, a swollen face, and a long, painful walk home for a single dripping mouthful of honey. And honestly, can you blame him? In a world with almost no sweetness at all, where nothing on the menu was sugary except the occasional lucky berry, honey was liquid treasure. It was energy, it was joy, it was the closest thing the Stone Age had to candy. So yes, sometimes ancient breakfast was gloriously dessert first. Now let's move the clock forward because something enormous is about to happen. Farming. Around 10 to 12,000 years ago, humans in several different parts of the world, entirely separately, begin to plant crops and raise animals instead of only chasing them across the landscape. This wasn't a single lightning bolt moment. It was a slow, grinding revolution that unfolded over generations. But it quietly reinvents breakfast forever. And honestly, it reinvents everything else too. Watch our stickman put down his spear, look at it for a long moment, and pick up a handful of grain instead. He doesn't know it yet, but he just changed the entire course of the human story from that little fistful of seeds. Because grain changes everything. Once people were growing wheat, barley, and other cereals in patches of cleared, tended earth. The morning meal starts to look a little more familiar to us. Crushed grains, soaked and mixed with water, cooked on a hot, flat stone, or bubbling away in a simple clay pot. Congratulations, Stickman, you have just invented porridge. Warm, filling, cheap, and endlessly repeatable, some form of grain mush or gruel became one of the most common breakfasts across the entire ancient world, from one continent to the next. It is not glamorous. Nobody is painting heroic murals about a bowl of lukewarm mush, but that humble gray slop kept entire civilizations upright, fed, and on their feet, and there is a strong argument that it deserves a statue more than any mammoth hunter ever did. And where there is grain, bread is never very far behind. Flat, dense, chewy loaves baked on hot stones and hot surfaces, sometimes barely more than cooked paste, sometimes puffed and golden. Our stickman tears off a piece of warm flatbread with his hands, and suddenly he looks a whole lot less prehistoric and a whole lot more like someone standing in line at a modern bakery on a Sunday. Bread with a little oil drizzled over it. Bread smeared with honey. Bread with whatever scrap of food happened to be left from yesterday. For thousands of years, across an astonishing number of different cultures who never even met each other, bread was the unshakable anchor of the morning. It filled the belly, it traveled well, and it forgave almost anything you put on top of it. Let's follow our stickman into the great ancient civilizations now, because this is where the menu really starts to get richer and stranger. In ancient Egypt, ordinary working people leaned heavily on bread and beer. Yes, beer, first thing, and before you judge them, understand that this was not the cold, fizzy stuff you're picturing. Egyptian beer was thick, cloudy, deeply nourishing, and low in alcohol, closer to a drinkable liquid bread than to anything you'd order at a bar. Add some sharp raw onions, a few sweet sticky dates, maybe a bit of fish pulled fresh from the Nile that morning, and that was a genuinely solid, sustaining start to a long day of hauling stone and working the fields under a punishing sun. Now, send our stickman across the sea to ancient Greece and Rome and watch breakfast shrink until it becomes almost minimalist. Many Romans ate an extremely light morning meal, sometimes nothing more than a piece of bread dipped in wine or plain water, perhaps rounded out with a few olives, a little crumbly cheese, or a handful of fruit. That was it. The Romans even had a specific word for this small, quick first meal because to them the real eating, the serious feasting, happened much later in the day. So the next time you skip a heavy breakfast in favor of just a coffee and a single bite of something on your way out the door, don't feel guilty. Congratulations, you are basically an ancient Roman, minus the toga and the questionable plumbing. Now swing all the way across the world, because breakfast was never one single story told by one single people. In ancient China, warm millet and rice porridge, often called congee, gently warmed people from the inside at dawn, soft and simple and easy on an empty stomach. Over in the early Americas, maize, which is to say corn, was ground on stone and cooked into flatbreads and thick nourishing drinks long, long before anyone on Earth had dreamed up the idea of a colorful breakfast cereal box. And everywhere our stickman travels, no matter the continent or the century, the very same pattern quietly repeats itself. People ate whatever their particular patch of land grew best, prepared in the simplest, most reliable way that could fill a stomach and get them out the door and into the work of survival. And here's the part worth pausing on. Notice carefully what is missing from every single one of these ancient tables. No sugary neon cereal shaped like tiny cartoon shapes. No orange juice poured from a carton. No greasy strips of bacon arranged lovingly next to a fried egg on a diner plate the size of a hubcap. Now eggs and cheese did eventually appear on the menu once animals were domesticated, and they were genuinely, deeply valued, because a hen laying eggs or a goat giving milk was a small, daily miracle worth protecting. But the giant, glistening, all-you-can-eat breakfast spread we picture in our heads today, that mountain of food, is a thoroughly modern invention. It is built on cheap, refined sugar, fast industrial cooking, and a couple of centuries of extremely clever advertising that convinced everyone this was normal. Our stickman, dropped without warning in front of a modern hotel breakfast buffet, would be absolutely stunned by the sheer, obscene quantity of food, and he'd be even more stunned to learn that we do this every single morning and then complain that we're still tired. So what did ancient humans really eat for breakfast? The honest, unglamorous answer is simply this. They ate whatever they had. Berries and roots for the patient gatherer. Cold leftover meat for the lucky hunter. A daring, sting-covered scoop of wild honey for the brave and the sweet-toothed. Warm porridge and torn flatbread for the settled farmer. Bread and thick, nourishing beer along the banks of the Nile. A humble crust dipped in wine for the busy Roman with somewhere better to be. A steaming bowl of grain in the cool morning mist of ancient China. Different foods, different worlds, different thousands of years, but all of them connected by the exact same simple goal that still drags every one of us out of bed today: fuel the body and get on with the enormous business of surviving another day. So the next time you pour a lazy bowl of cereal or grab something wrapped in plastic on your way out the door without a second thought, take one honest second to actually appreciate it. No climbing a cliff for honey with 100 bees in your face. No gnawing on cold leftover mammoth in the freezing dark. No going genuinely hungry because the berries ran out and the hunt came back empty-handed. Our stickman, and every ancestor he stands in for, spent tens of thousands of years slowly, painfully figuring out how to feed himself at sunrise. One root, one grain, one terrifyingly risky beehive at a time. And every quiet, boring, utterly ordinary breakfast you eat is the final chapter of that incredibly long and improbable story. So the next time someone asks you what ancient humans ate for breakfast, you can smile, lean back, and say, honestly, a little bit of everything as long as they could catch it, gather it, climb for it, or grow it.